Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Soul Focus. This is my special guest, Matthew Kuhn. How are you today, Matthew?
I'm awesome. Yeah, good. And you?
Yeah, great. I'm sitting here. I just came out from the cold, so I got the heater on my feet now.
Me too.
Yeah, that's it. It's not because I need the heater on my feet. It's just because I'm, grounding and got my shoes off. So that's how I'm calling it. How was Matthew is a sound healer. You do shamanic work. You do all sorts of stuff. You're basically a healer, aren't you?
Yeah, I have my finger in many pies. What do they call? Jack of all trades, master of none. But
Nice.
I use sound healer because I use all sorts of instruments, including voice, breath.
Yep.
Yeah. Many years ago, I was white feather drumming, and my focus, I guess, was on the Native American side of things.
Yep.
That was really my first call and love of the drum, and then using flutes and rattles and other things, and learning Native American songs and things like that. But over the years, I've just learned through many different mediums, traveling overseas to India and other places, just how important sound is, whether it be through song, music, again, using our voice, breath, instruments. So, yeah, sound. I like sound healing, intuitive sound healing. Because everything I do is intuitive. So, I mean, I could do, say, 10 shamanic healings using the same instruments, but each one will be different because I connect with the person, their energy, their guides, my intuition, and it all flows from there. But I would say 99.9% of the time, I start off with my medicine drum.
Yep.
And usually just start off with the heartbeat. So just a boom, 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 boom rhythm. And then it flows from there. It was a few years ago now that I come to realize and understand how important and simple the heartbeat rhythm is. I mean, I can do a healing just doing that for an hour on someone, and it'll be like very powerful. The heartbeat just takes us back to other days gone by. Back to many lifetimes ago. I think for me, the big thing was it takes us back to when we were in our mother's wombs.
Okay.
And just hearing that boom, 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 boom of our mother's heartbeat. And it's very powerful in relaxing. So you could have children or a child that's going, and you don't even have to do it around them. If you sit there with the drum, you don't even need a drum. You could sit there with a Milo tin, a plastic water bottle, and just do that boom, boom, that rhythmic. And that will naturally calm a child down or anyone down without being in their face and without them having to think about it, because it's that natural rhythm that takes us back. I mean, like everything, there's always an exception, because maybe if the child's experienced trauma, especially later on before birth, the mother's had a car accident. I don't want to get into nasty stuff, but something traumatic's happened. So that can also at times have not detrimental, but a traumatic effect. Like if people hear that beat, because it just brings back those memories. I mean, they don't even have to understand it. Obviously, if it's pre-birth, it's interesting. It's interesting when you start getting into that sort of area of healing. Yeah.
So, how did spiritually wise? How did all this come about? How did you get? What path did you go down to get you to spirituality?
Pain. Pain, and lots of it. I remember my oldest brother. He was doing this weird ass stuff called Reiki, and he used to try, because he could see I was in pain in my life in general and the way I was living my life, and he tried to help me, and I used to think horrible things about him, because I wasn't ready at that stage to hear anything about it. And then back in those days, I was trying to be a rock and roll drummer. Did a lot of drumming, a lot of jamming, a lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs, a lot of partying and with the drumming and stuff. And just one night I woke up screaming in pain. The tendon in my shoulder had gone. I still believe there was other forces manipulating, manipulating it. But it was that severe. I ended up having a week off work, and then I had my shoulder in a sling for a couple, like a week or so after, and then light duties. But during that first week when I was off work, my brother goes, "Oh, why don't you go see?" I won't mention names, but his Reiki teacher and get some Reiki done. And at that stage, I was willing to try anything just to help me, not understanding what Reiki was. And I went and had the Reiki session, and I come away going, well, what was that? And then bless my brother, he said, "Oh, why don't you go and do Reiki 1? Go and do Reiki 1 and learn Reiki so you can help heal yourself." And he said, look, it's only going to cost you one night at the pub, and even back in those days, I could spend well over $100 for a good night, good Friday night in the pub. So
those days are gone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it'd be a couple hundred now. But so, again, I was lucky because in the early stages, I just did stuff because I whatever was going, my guides, whatever that was working with me, there was nothing profound, but it was just, okay, I'll try it. Which was, I'm very happy I did, because I wouldn't be here now if I hadn't. But it was just weird because, it was the initial pain. And then there was just something in the back of my head that said, that just allowed that, I guess, a bit of curiosity or whatever. And I thought, oh, well, what's the worst that can happen? I don't have a hangover for one day. And so I went and did my Reiki 1. And then for those that don't know, when you do Reiki, you're supposed to have like a 21-day cleansing healing period for your body to cleanse and adjust and all that. But I did my Reiki 2 weeks later. And the reason that came about, because the woman I did my Reiki 1 and then Reiki 2 with, her teacher was coming down from Queensland. And again, I didn't know any of this stuff. I was just going with the flow at this stage. And she said, "Oh, you're supposed to have 3 weeks, but you're going to do your Reiki 2 because this lady's going to come down and I want you to do this thing called isolation." Again, no idea. I had no idea what isolation was. 2 weeks later, I did Reiki 2. And then I think it was about 3 weeks I did isolation.
You do what?
It's called isolation.
What's that?
So Reiki works on the physical body, and is that like, without getting into too much detail, is like a heavier energy working with the physical body. Isolation is working with your spiritual body, and it's a lighter, more feminine energy.
What's that used for?
So isolation, say it's a more powerful energy, I suppose. I'm just trying to word it so I don't mislead people or anything. So basically, say 20 minutes of Seishem is what 2 hours of Reiki can do for you.
Okay.
You can do with isolation and Reiki as well. You can clear past life, clear your aura, your chakras, etc. Isolation. Oh well, like I did the basic Seishem and then advanced Seishem. I never went onto my mark because, so many symbols. I can't remember because it's been years. I still use some of them, but there's so many things with Seishem. Oh, yeah, it's pretty full on. I think it's like 20 or 30 symbols. You learn some in Isolate, and then advanced, you learn more symbols. Oh, you just, it just goes from here to what you do, what you can do. But an interesting thing, just backtracking. So when I did my Reiki 1, I'd been a heavy smoker for over 20 years. At that stage, I had 13 piercings. I had 6 piercings in my ears, and I had 1 in my eyebrow. 10 days before I did my Reiki 2, but I think it was 10, 11 days after my Reiki 1, I stopped smoking. Everything changed for me after Reiki. All my piercings changed colour.
Would there been like detoxing, body detoxing, or?
Yeah, everything changed. I remember on the day that I did Reiki, I think it was after my 3rd attunement, because you do 4 attunements. And I think it was after my 3rd attunement, I'd come out and I was like, and the woman who was teaching me the Reiki, she goes, wow, who are you? And I go, oh, what are you talking about? She goes, go and look in the mirror. And even I was impressed, because I used to have like really dark bags under my eyes. And I swear I was like 10, 12 years younger. And that was before the day had even finished. And then, like I said, all my piercings, because I had all gold piercings, all my piercings changed colour. And then, the cigarettes. And, 10 days after that, I stopped smoking. So that was a big, profound change for me, and how I started down my spiritual path. I had sort of touched on things before that, as in...
What were you looking at?
Well, I had gone through a stage of contemplating suicide. I was a very angry man. I was addicted to pokies.
Yep.
I was just living off my credit cards, so my debt was accumulating. And, God bless the banks, because every time I maxed out my credit card, they'd give me a few more grand to play with. It got really scary there, because I just felt I had no control of my life. So I guess things had started changing for me before Reiki, but that was the big thing. But, so the night I'd finished afternoon shift in a winery, gone to the Brauhaus Hotel in Angaston, and basically blown all my pay on the pokies in an hour and a half.
Ouch.
And I was driving home. I was very, very angry with myself, life. I can remember just screaming, punching the windscreen, and then I thought, fuck, what am I doing? What's it all about? And seriously considered like just driving into a tree, and that was a sobering moment for me. And then I stopped gambling.
Yep.
Basically straight away, because that sort of scared me straight. And then I started getting into this thing. Like I said, I was a very angry young man. I'd walk into work and I'd be like driving through the gates of the winery, the wine bottling. And then I can't remember who it was, but someone put me on to Abraham Hicks.
Yeah.
And you've heard Abraham Hicks, yep. So
law of attraction. Yeah.
And so this friend gave me all these CDs, but the biggest thing I took out of that was changing my thought processes.
Yeah.
And I really, really took that. So I'd get to about 5 minutes out of work, and instead of driving in going, I want to kill people, I just started going, I'm going to have a good day at work. And I'd just continue. I'd just chant it like a mantra, even though I didn't know what mantras were back then.
Yep.
And I just chant that and chant that and chant that. And that started changing things for me. And then I did Reiki. Yeah. And then I did the Reiki one. And I can remember, because in those days I was a filler operator. So, and then we had a filler operating room. And we had runners, which were women would come down between each jobs, bring all the paperwork, all your dry goods that you needed in the filling room, and it was such a great moment. So I can remember a couple of the ladies come up to me one day, and they just went, "Wow, we can't believe how much you've changed," And they said, we used to be scared to come down to the filling room, because I'd be changing a field or doing something and just losing the plot, throwing big 3-inch steel spanners across the filling room, and not proud of it. When I think back, but you got to laugh.
Just
but
in reaction mode, and
yeah, and to actually have someone to come up to and acknowledge and say, "Wow, we can't believe how much you've changed." We used to be scared to come down and down to the filling room. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
So you started changing things for yourself through I guess through the power of suggestion, or just your positive thinking, all that sort of thing. Where did you go from there?
Well, I was as when anyone's new to something, I was just so keen. I couldn't get enough. Any workshop I could do, and I did a lot through my teachers. The lady who come down, Trish, who did Seishem, and ended up doing my Reiki masters with her. a few years later. I did so much through her, big influence in my early days because I was just so keen, and she just used to blow my mind because at that stage I'd never heard of aliens and Atlantis and all this. Everything was just so new to me, and I was sort of like a little kid in a lolly shop. I want that, I want that, I want that, and I want that, and so I did things, and a lot of everything she taught was all about using your intuition. So we did palmistry. I learnt foot hand reflexology. I did a couple of things in crystals, how to use crystals for healing and things like that.
So what's reflexology about?
So in your hands and your feet are basically maps of your body, and there's certain parts in your hands and your feet that you can manipulate, that will work on other parts of your body. And I'll share you a really cool story. Many moons ago, when I was married, when I first got married, and I'd actually met my ex-wife Cindy at a course. I don't know what it was. Anyway, at one of these early spiritual courses, I'd met her at. So then we ended up getting married, and I had an health issue, which again was the universe shifting me in new directions. So we ended up down at Middleton, down the lovely south coast there, and I started off. I had a foot detoxing machine, and you put your feet in a like a foot bath, and then I had a machine that had a plug into an array, and that would send negative ion into the water, and it caused your internal organs to detox. So I started off. That was basically my first business I ever did, was doing the foot detoxing, and then doing foot massaging and reflexology. And this one particular lady, elderly lady, she had rheumatoid arthritis in her spine. And so it was about an inch patch on each of her feet that represented that same spot in her spine. And what I would do for 15, 20 minutes was just get my thumb and my fingers and my knuckles, and I'd just rub and manipulate that same spot. I'd do one foot 15, 20 minutes, and I'd do the other foot for 15, 20 minutes. And what really encouraged me, especially back in those early days, was she'd tell me, she'd say she could feel the pain alleviating and feel her back easing up. And that's really cool. And when you're very new to healing, it's so good to get feedback from someone who has a legitimate and painful or chronic disease or issue in their body. So for me, that was very profound for me, just to get that feedback. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. So so reflexology is just, again, your feet and your hands is just different techniques for manipulating those spots. So your toes, everything just has different little connections with your body. So and like I said, particularly for her with the rheumatoid arthritis in the spine. So that's all I'd do for her. I'd just work those parts because that's what she needed and wanted. So that was pretty cool.
So reflexology, where did you go from? What did you study from? Where did you go from there after your first business?
I did reflexology. I did palmistry. I did numerology. Now, mind you, like, these ain't universities. These aren't studying for years. Most of these were weekend courses where you learnt the basics. So you learnt the techniques where you had to work, but then we were also guided to use our intuition. So intuition's been massive for me and a big part for me in learning what I do in my healing work, and thank God for that, because I've been doing this now for over 17 years, and even though I still have my moments, but I've just learned to trust and trust what I'm seeing. Because in the early days, I would see things in my third eye, I would feel things, but I never fully trusted. It took quite a few years to really learn to trust the intuition and the guidance. And now it just pays off for me. It really does. And I've had a couple of moments in my life where different things have happened, and sometimes it's like a voice in my head, and it can be something simple, like it's weird to explain. I can tell you another quick story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so I have a drink. So the day I discovered that I truly was an empath and how to call for help was after I split up with my ex-wife, and first place that I lived on my own, I was basically starting from scratch, having to make new friends, put myself out there again. So I started going to this meditation group out of Mount Pleasant between the Barossa and Adelaide Hills. And again, I won't give names because I don't want to give personal details away. But if people are listening that know, then they'll know. But the lady who was running the meditation group, her daughter had 4 young children and her partner had died. And she'd come to this meditation group. She was lying down. I just laid down next to her. Other people were chatting. I didn't really know everyone. And in those days when I wasn't fully comfortable, I was a little bit, I'm an extrovert, but I could be that little bit introverted when I wasn't totally comfortable. So I was just lying down, and I'm lying down with my eyes shut, just relaxing. And I kept getting in my head, hold her hand. I kept ignoring it. Hold her hand. Kept ignoring it. And it just kept coming, hold her hand. So this was still quite new. And I said, look, excuse me, I keep getting this message to hold your hand. Can I hold your hand, please? And she said, yeah, no worries. So I put my hand out. She put her hand in mine. And as soon as her hand in mine, I just felt this overwhelming sadness and grief and tears. I was just crying, not bawling, but the tears were just flowing. And it was just sadness and grief. And it was just, far out. And then again, the intuition kicked in, and I'd been learning about Saint Germain, and because I'd done my Reiki masters by this stage, and my teacher had said that Saint Germain was my master in spirit with Reiki. So I called on him, and I called on Saint Germain. I said, Saint Germain, please, if this is not mine, take it away from me. And it did. And at the end, when the time was right, and it stopped, and I just thought, and then we had the meditation. And at the meditation, this woman had come up. She gave me a hug, and she just went, thank you so much. She felt so much better. But it was so powerful for me that I was getting very clear direction, a voice in my head. And as much as I was trying to block it out, when I listened to it, and then the guidance of, then I knew that I was the empath, and that was part of my healing gift to other people, was taking their pain and emotion and hurt away from them. But then the gift to me from Saint Germain and Spirit was learning how to release it.
Yep.
And it was years later that I learned to do it through my breath. And it was actually during an ayahuasca ceremony weekend. And it was the first and only time that I've done ayahuasca this weekend. And that was very powerful. And Mother showed me in that altered awareness state, whatever, how powerful my breath was, and to use my breath to release the stuff that I take out. And I'll expand onto that a bit more.
Yep.
So when I do sound bars, workshops, meditations, whether it's one-on-one healing or group stuff, that's what I do. If it's one-on-one, I connect that person's energy, and just like a healing, and that's how I release my breath. When we come together as a group, we create like an energy entity. So the group has an energy thing, and what I do is clear that entity. I don't know if that's the correct word. That's the word I've always used. Entity, splog, whatever. So yeah, so I clear that in group healings, and that's how I'm releasing through my breath. So anyone that ever has been or comes to meditations, workshops, whatever, any work with me, you'll always hear me go, because that's me releasing. And that was the beauty of being in the ayahuasca. I could actually see the darkness, the yuck, the black. And even at one stage there, this may sound weird, but I was actually pulling it out my mouth, and I was pulling this thick, black, sludgy, energetic stuff out. And then, hope it doesn't sound too weird, but that's what it was.
Oh, no, not at all. It's amazing what you can see when you're in the veils with some things. It sort of does. I mean, I've done something similar where I've and gone and done meditations and just seen all the electric magnetic fields that we live in, and then it just buzzed, and I saw like all the electronics and all the fields, and it just while I meditated, it just showed me how bombarded we are with energies, with man-made energies. So yeah. So you sound after all that happened, you I mean, you've studied just so much, haven't you, over the years?
Yeah, I guess, like I said, I ended up doing my Reiki Masters with my oldest brother. Yep. And especially in the early days when I started off, so I'm just going to digress and then I'll get back, because it's important for men, strong masculine men, but that are doing the work and balancing their feminine energy. So So when I say strong masculine, it's not about lifting heavy weights or who can, you know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But I see my job as a spiritual warrior, as a strong masculine man, is to protect, but not because they're less than or need it. But my job as divine masculine, I believe, is my job to protect and keep safe the divine feminine, so she can do her magic. That's how I look at it. The feminine is the creative, is creation, and that's where the magic really happens. Not that anyone's less than anyone else. We're just different in that energy sense. So that's how I feel. My place as a spiritual warrior, as a divine masculine man, is to hold space, that space, so the feminine can do her magic and create and bring that love. Now, I was going to go back to where we were. I'm just trying to think. Where were we? Sorry. The next big. So in the early days, I remember going to.
Keep going. I've locked my brother out the back. I'm just going to go and open the door for him. My bad. Keep going.
All right. So in the early days, when I started off, I remember going to a light frequency workshop with a guy called Ian White. For those of you who've heard of him. And there was like 30 women there, and I was the only male doing the workshop. And during breaks, I'd have women coming up to me and going, "Oh, it's so good to see a man here," because there just weren't a lot of men doing stuff when I started off. So I was just saying how in the early days workshops and that.
Yep.
A few times I'd done stuff like Ian White light frequency workshops and just to name one, and I was the only male. There was 30 odd women there, and they'd come up to me in the breaks going, "Oh, it's so nice to see a male," and that here. So the next big thing that happened to me was I did in 2010. I did the Manaki, which Alberto Velaldo, who spent 20 odd years in the Amazon, studying with different shamans up and down the Amazon. He brought that back to the West. So the Manaki is the 9 healing rites of the Incan shaman. And that really changed my world. That's when I really got into the shamanic stuff. I was already doing drumming by that stage, which is another story which I'd like to tell if I remember. And it was the Manaki that I first heard the Native American flute being played by a lovely lady called Ros Betts, who I haven't seen for a while, but she was a really good friend of mine. And I actually brought a flute off her. But like that day at the Manaki, we had time to go off and do things. And I heard her playing, and I followed around like a puppy dog because I was just so drawn to the sound of that flute. And I just wanted to hear more. So everywhere she went and played, I followed around. And then I ended up buying a flute off her because she was selling them for this guy that made them. But And that was when my love affair started with the Native American flute.
Yep.
But the mana key really taught me about the Laker, the light, the ancient Incans, and the light beings, and how they worked with our light bodies for the healing and stuff. Then during that time, we all gifted a pie stone. I mean, I don't use it anymore. I mean, I broke my pie stone many years ago. So a pie stone was just a crystal, a rounded crystal with a hole in it. And then we used to use that doing the different things. But again, it was like, it was like Reiki. I used to say Shem, the mana key, all these different things that I've gone and learnt and different things over the years. I've just found that it wasn't my calling to follow one path, but I've learnt to what resonated with me, to learn and take on board the aspects that resonated with me. And I've got, kudos to anyone that has that, picks a path and follows it. I've got no problems with that. But for me personally, that wasn't for me. My learning, and I'm still doing it today, just learning how can I add that? How can that make me better?
Yep.
How can that make me a better channel, a better healer, a better intuitive? So I did the mana key. And then a couple of years later, and again, just another big shift for me was a friend of mine told me about this thing called kirtan, and I'd never heard of mantras and stuff at that stage. So I've rocked up to this place in Mount Barker to do this kirtan, and not knowing what I was in for. But my friend said, "You'll like it." She knew me better than I knew myself back in those days. And so I've rocked up. So kirtan is sacred chanting mantras through song and things. So a lot of kirtans call and response. So the kirtan wallahs or the musicians will chant a line or two lines, and then the rest of the audience repeat it back. Now, two things that stood out to this day and are still so fresh in my memory was maybe halfway through the night, I was sitting there with my eyes shut, chanting, and I can just remember smiling. And I thought to myself, I can't stop smiling. I couldn't have stopped smiling if I tried to. And I can remember my body, my Kundalini energy was rising. And I'm just sitting there like an idiot. Not an idiot, but, just in bliss. And I could feel my body, that Kundalini energy's rising. And the second thing that stood out for me was the last kirtan or last song we did of the night was chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And I was up, and that's what I was doing. I was up dancing and I'm chanting and I'm just going for it. And I was just in total bliss. Powerful. And I remember going up to one of the kirtan wallahs afterwards, and I'm like, I'm like this excitable little kid, something new, and I loved it. It's like, can I buy this music? Where can I get this stuff from? And they told me two names was Krishna Das and Dave Stringer. And so I Googled, and I didn't know you could buy that stuff in Australia at that stage. So I ended up getting online and ordering all these CDs from America from Krishna Das and this Dave Stringer, because I just knew that, this stuff rocked, and I wanted to hear it and be able to do it. And then through that, I searched kirtan and stuff in Adelaide, and I come across this group called Shanti Mission, which, and through connecting with Shanti Mission in Adelaide, I'm not sure if they're still active in Adelaide, but a lot of the devotees still live in Adelaide, but I don't know if they still do stuff here. Again, it's one of those things. I spent a few years learning with Shanti Mission. I went to India with them for a retreat in 2014. And it's just amazing. And we were only in India for a week, but wow, what a week. The energy was, and the experiences I had was just blew me away. going to goshalas, which are basically temples for cows, and I remember we were walking through, and like a temple, you've got to take your shoes off. You can't walk in there with shoes, even though it's for the cows. And I remember, and I'm sitting there, and I'm looking at this young calf, and I don't know why, I put my arm out, and this calf put its head out, and its big tongue, and its tongue sort of wrapped around my hand, and it was just and I was just, I was crying. I was in love with this cow, with this calf, the energy. It was just such a beautiful moment. And there was one, they had this elephant, and you could either give money or you pay the handler money, and you give you a bit of cane, and the elephant would bless you. So the elephant got his trunk and went down my face, and it was just like, it was just truly amazing experiences, and the energy was just, it was quite funny because, again, it was new. And I remember, like, we'd start 6 or 6:30 every morning. We'd start with our own stuff with our guru, Shakti Durga, and after a couple of days, I remember, because we split, we're in like groups, and each group had one of the Shakti Durga's disciples or teachers.
Yep.
And I remember saying to her, I was having a shocking headache, and the energy was so intense, and I wasn't grounded. And so she got one of the other guys to take me away and do some ground. And after that, I was fine, but I just didn't know how to deal with such intense energy. And it was there that I got my name Balaji. So the last morning, so with Shanti Mission, when the time was right, she would call through from your higher self. And I'd only been with them for like 2 years, and there was a lot of people that had been with Shanti Mission for a lot longer, but hadn't been given their spiritual name yet. So it's not a right or wrong. It's just a matter of timing when you're ready or not. So the last morning I get called up. Shakti Durga calls me up to the front, and before I even get there, I knew what was coming, and I was just bawling. I was just crying, and she went through and got my name Balaji, and then just such profound moments in my life.
So I've got a question from one of the audience. What was your greatest spiritual takeaway from this time?
In India?
Yep.
Right. So it was based around my name. So Balaji is a deity, God, in the lineage of Krishna and Vishnu. And that lineage is all about service. So Vishnu, oh God, I can't remember now because I've got so much going through my brain at the moment, the different stories. So Vishnu was a consort of, and some people know, and hopefully you can correct me. All right. So all the suitors, all the men, when she wanted a partner, a consort, all the men would come up and try and impress her with this or that, whatever. Whereas Vishnu just kept going about his work, and that caught her eye. And I'm going, oh, please help me with the name, the deity's name. And that caught her eye because he was the only one not trying to impress her, but just doing his service work and doing his work. So I guess the takeaway point of that is, for me, it's important to do service work. So, yes, I can have a business and earn my money in abundance because we all need money in abundance to survive, pay our bills, etc. But I have to do more. I have to do the service work. The work where you do it because you want to do it, because I'm being schooled on not using words like need and want. So knowing that I have to do it, so service work's very important for me. To do it without expectations. So you're doing it not expecting anything to come back to you in exchange. I mean, you always expect good deeds brings good karma. However you see karma.
Yeah, law of attraction, all that.
Yeah. So a good example of service work. So as us devotees that were over in India with the temple, with our guru's guru, Narayani, Shakti, what was her name? Shakti. Anyway, sorry, I'll digress if I go down that path. So what us devotees would do, because they would feed thousands of poor people every day in these big kitchen area. So service work for us, just as an example over there, was to go around and push the carts and serve these people. And it was like, you remember, these are just average or just your basic poor people, Indian people that come to the temple to get a feed and worship and praise God, etc., whatever. To be actually served by a white person, you could probably understand or appreciate, some reactions and stuff. So that was just an example of service work, or it's simple, even like walking down, say, Jetty Road in Glenelg, and you see maybe a homeless person, giving them $10, $20 to clothe them or feed them or help them. If you see someone struggling, it's just doing those. It can be little or big things, but it's just doing those things to help because you want to. And sorry, Shakti Amma, that was Shakti Durga, who was my guru through Shani Mission Australia. So her guru was Shakti Amma in India. And she, when I say she, this is a guy with a beard, but she's the incarnation of Narayani. And Narayani, sorry if I'm digressing again, Narayani is Durga, Lakshmi, and Saraswati, 3 deities become Narayani. So she was the embodiment of Narayani, the same as the Dalai Lama is the living embodiment of Buddha. The same principle. And I'm getting goosebumps. And for those who don't believe, until you've been in the energy of a being that is so highly evolved, has done the work, and a truly, 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 truly amazing experience. And in fact, it was our last night. I'm just trying to think if I'd gotten my name Balaji that morning or I got it the next morning. No, I reckon I'd gotten it that morning. So this is how powerful India was for me, getting my name and all that. We were sitting in the temple. So every day, Shakti Amma would do Abhishekam and different things. I don't know. For those that don't know, just trying to do quickly, Abhishekam, there's different Hindu practices with the flame, or that's arti, where you candles and you go around the deity. Abhishekam's doing water, and they use different kumkum and different things to wash and the deities or the statues that represent the deities. So we were waiting in the temple for them, and probably the hundreds of times I've told this story, I can still only describe it was I was sitting there and I was just hit by pure love, and I just started bawling. I was just openly bawling, and my nose, the snot was running just as freely as the tears were. And you can imagine having this complete, it's not a breakdown, or it's like a meltdown, but it's not. It's just like a big release. So I'm curled up, just, tears. And the beauty of it is most people had already experienced what I had, like the longer devotees. So no one come and tried to be the rescuer and put your arm around you. They just let me do, because they knew you had the process. Yeah. But the blessings is people were just shoving handfuls of tissues so I could just wipe my face. And I don't know how long it went for, a minute or 2 minutes. And then, I calmed down. And the first time I'm going, I was feeling a little bit sheepish. And then fucking bang! Again, same thing. It was just boom, curled up in a ball. People putting tissues in my hand. And I know it happened 3 times. I can't remember what happened the 4th time, but this happened 3 times, and it was just so profound, so powerful, the healing and releasing that I got. Huge. So again, India was just huge for me. Yeah.
So so obviously you've taken stuff that you've incorporated from those experiences into your freestyle that you do today.
Yeah, definitely. So I did my Reiki Masters obviously a few years ago. I don't do a lot of Seishem because I haven't practiced it and that a lot. But sometimes I'll get a symbol or something will come through to use through healings. And then with the mana key, there's different things I use with that. Like I still, when I do sound baths meditations, I open sacred space, and I still do that the way I was taught through the mana key. So it has that South American flavour to it with the directions and the energies and the beasts, but the animal totems that I call them when I open sacred space. So it has that South American flavour. And then and everything's just been a progression from then. So I was doing a healing on this Aboriginal lady who I didn't know. She was a friend of a friend, and she'd paid me to do this healing for her. And in those days, because obviously people had their eyes shut, and I used to dance around, and because I wanted to dance when I was doing my drumming. And then at the end of the healing, she said to me, "Do you ever feel like singing when you're doing healing work?" And I said, "Yeah, all the time." And she said, "Well, why don't you?" And then it was after that when I started doing it that I started using my voice, chanting and what I call my wallowing. So I guess it's an influence of Native American. Because with the drumming, I didn't really start off a bit. There's another story how I started off with the Native American style drumming, which I would like to tell before we finish tonight, in case I forget, if you can remind me. So I just started doing that, and it just grew from there. And of course, like people when you're starting off, I thought, if I do this or do that, is my voice going to be all right? Is it going to put people off? And I just started doing it, whether it was one-on-one healings, during meditation, sound bars. I just started chanting and wallowing, and whatever come through. Sometimes I'll sing songs that I learned. And then the more I did it, the stronger it got. And then, I don't consider myself a pop singer, or you know what I mean. I don't think my voice is suited to singing, a top 40 rock song or something.
Yeah, Adele. Or...
but with chanting mantras and like I said, my style of toning. I don't do the throat singing, but I do toning and my version of it. And again, I've learnt just to do what comes naturally for me. I guess I've been influenced by other people's stuff, but again, it comes back to what I feel comfortable with, intuitively and that.
So if someone comes to you, what do usually people come? What sort of healing do they come for? Having issues with anything in particular?
Anything. Because I guess during healings, it can be very profound, from doing past life, clearing energy blockages from this and past lifetimes, cleansing, clearing chakras. Basically, and I don't say this with any silliness or I like to feel I'm pretty much a one-stop shop. I can't say I'm going to cure everything or whatever. I facilitate, but it obviously depends on the person, what they're needing, what their body wants. So when I do one-on-one healing work, I'm connecting with their higher self, their guides, and I do a lot of this. I start the day before. Even if it's just 5 or 10 minutes, I'll go into that bit of meditation, and I'll call them in. I'll call their higher self in, their guides, and sometimes I will get direct guidance, and sometimes it'll just come during the healing. It's like times where I'll be drumming and I'm walking around. It's like it's almost like I hit a brick wall. And it's like bang, and then I know I need to stop, and then I'll refocus in where I am on that person's body, and then I'll just keep drumming, and then I'll tune in, and then I'll work. And especially in the early days with the drumming, the drum, again, because now I've learned to use and trust my intuition. But in the early days, my drum would dictate to me. So when I was drumming, the pitch of the drum would change, and depending on the person and where I was working on that person's body would dictate to me how hard I hit the drum. So if I was working on a dark area, like say the aura, you get like dark splutches, or what we learnt through Manaki called Butcher, which is dark energy. So just a bit more on that quickly. So say if you're someone who speaks negatively all the time, you're always running other people down, yourself down, whatever. So when you're speaking constantly negatively, you're going to be putting dark splutches around your throat chakra and in your aura around your throat. So what I do through healing and other things, through the drumming and other things I do, is actually clearing that butcher, that dark energy away.
Yep.
And clearing that. Because when that builds up and it gets heavier and heavier and heavier, then we'll actually manifest a physical illness. So even though that's starting in your chakras or your aura, if it's not cleansed and cleared and you continue in that vein, and it might take years, but eventually you'll create an illness. It could be throat cancer, or you'll have laryngitis or problems with your throat, speech problems and things like that. So that's a part of what I do is cleansing and clearing that.
Okay.
And it's pretty cool. Sorry, I got about 1,000 things running through my brain. What were we talking about?
We were just talking about your healing style and what sort of things you can heal.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So that's just another example. And part of what's been coming over the last few years, and it's coming through really strongly now for me, is teaching people to heal themselves. So teaching people how powerful our voice, our breath is, and teaching people things like mantras. And that's why I'm very passionate about mantras and teaching people mantras. There's a thing called the Bija mantras, which represent your chakras. So, for example, the one-syllable mantras. So your solar plexus it's RAM, but it's Ram. So if you're having problems around your solar plexus area chakra and issues related with the creativity and your solar plexus, so I'd want, if that's what I picked up on, going right, bang, solar plexus, right. So the first thing I would be teaching that person in the healing is for them to chant and it doesn't matter how fast or slow, but the slower, and you can build that energy up. So I'd be teaching them going 5 minutes a day. You need to be going Ram, 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 and just to build that energy up and to cleanse their chakras. And then of course, then you get the things. So again, mantras, for those that don't know, is basically just chanting the names of God. Because in the Hindu tradition, there's thousands of deities, but they're not separate gods. They're just flavors of the one creator God. So Krishna, Vishnu, these aren't separate. And sorry to all my Hare Krishna brothers that I spent time with. They're not the God. They're a flavor of God and have certain influences or aspects of God. So example, the Gayatri mantra is very powerful mantra. I mean, I think all mantras are powerful, but it's like anything, maybe I'm right or wrong. If I'm wrong, I do apologize, but I do believe some are more powerful than others. Just the meaning, what they can do. So I love, so when I do workshops, a couple of mantras I want to teach is the Bija, and the other one is the Gayatri mantra. So that's So it's Om Bhuvasvaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhago Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. So that's the what they call the Gayatri mantra. And
What does that
again,
do?
it's
What is that?
it's chanting again. Mantras are chanting the names, words of God.
Yep.
So by chanting the mantras, it lifts your energy. I don't know how else to really explain it. It's just powerful. So if you were to sit there and you chanted that 1, 2, 3, obviously, like anything, the longer you do it, the more you get into it, and the more you'll feel the energy. It's like I was telling you with the first time I did Kirtan, and during the night, my Kundalini unit just started, and I was just feeling bliss, and I just couldn't stop smiling. That's what mantras does. That's the power of mantras. It can take you to that higher level. It takes you to bliss. It takes you to pure love. It expands you. It creates your energy. Not creates your energy. It just lifts your energy and creates higher energy, I suppose. It's powerful. And when you're in that energy, how you can't be, you know what I mean? It's healing. You can't be down when you're in pure love, pure bliss. You can't be angry. You can't be negative. You can't be anything that's not positive. You know what I mean? It's just, and that's what I want to teach people, because it's something that you don't need nothing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You can if you can get away for yourself 5 minutes, you can chant some mantras. If you're having a shitty day, what better than go sitting under a tree, or even if you're by the ocean, go stand in the water, get your feet, or sit in the chair, get your feet on the grass, close your eyes and just chant mantras for 5 minutes. Omming, same thing. Oh, omming is the ultimate, is the original sound. It's so powerful. You sit there and om for 5 minutes. This is what I want to teach people, to take control of their own healing. We don't, I'm happy for people to come to me for healings and to pay me money and whatever, or energy exchanges. But again, it's about helping people. That's the service work again, helping people to help themselves, to take. And I know we all need help at times. I've been getting a lot of help. As you know, I've been getting a lot of help myself in recent times with issues that I've had. All healers, all people need help at some stage. So I believe without doubt, the more that I can help people. Because again, when we help other people, we're helping everyone, because we're all connected. So when someone shifts and grows, that benefits everyone. That benefits society. That lifts the energy. So it benefits all of us. So in a way, you're doing yourself a favor by helping someone else anyway. So
that's it. It's all part of the conscious, or helps the consciousness.
So I've just had a question. Yes, I do. I certainly do use my flute. I've got a couple of flutes now. Definitely use my flute in healing work. I'll just expand on that. So with the sound healing, I use my medicine drum, which I do have here. It's warming up by the heater, because I'm going to do some drumming later. So that's my medicine drum, or hand drum, made in the Native American style. And I also have my big Mother Earth drum, which if you go to my Facebook pages, there'll be pictures of that there. I use Native American flutes. I use Tibetan bowls, crystal bowls, rain sticks. I use so many different things. I have chakra chimes, which are a beautiful set of chimes, which are attuned to your 7 main chakras, the Earth Star chakra and your Soul Star chakra. I can't remember what they're called. We used to use them like when we chant the but when you ding them together, they create a beautiful sound. So the two sides are attuned to a different hertz, and when you clang them together, that's the healing magic, is the sound that's created between those two hertz. I'm learning didgeridoo. I can make basic sounds, but I haven't learnt the circular breathing yet. And I'm learning tarot too. I was going to learn tarot many years ago when I was married, but I didn't, because I didn't really trust my intuition back then as much. So, but I'm learning tarot now, just as another tool of a way that I can help people with guidance and in their healing work. But yeah, I use a lot of different things with my sound. And if Amanda hadn't heard before, I use my voice. I do chanting. I do sing some Native American songs on whatever comes to me, toning. And yeah, my breath a lot. So yeah, yes, yeah, definitely use my flute. So many different instruments.
Now you went on a big pilgrimage.
Haven't even started
talk about. Have you got a short version?
How much time have we got?
A little bit.
So it's actually 2015 and 2015. I had the calling. It was Christmas 2015 with a dear friend who I'd met through Shanty Mission, having Christmas dinner. So she told me about this film called The Way. So The Way is a fictional story, but it's about a true pilgrimage called the Camino de Santiago. So in northern Spain and in France, there's lots of different what they call caminos or pilgrimages. But the main one starts in a little village in the Pyrenees on the French side, called Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. And basically you're walking all across northern Spain to Santiago de Compostela, which is a big city in northern Spain with a very, very famous cathedral. And that's just under 800 kilometres walking. And then I've always walked the original 100 kilometres to Finisterre, which is the most northernest point of Spain. And back in the Roman days when they pushed all the Celts out, and they called it, it was known as the end of the world, because back then they believed if you kept sailing, you'd come off the end of the world. So the Camino de Santiago was a very old pagan pilgrimage. And they used to do a lot of it by night time through the stars. And you're following a lot of energy ley lines and it is very, 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 very powerful. It's very old. It's been going for a long, long time. So in 2015, I saw this movie called The Way, which is by Emilio Estevez and Martin Sheen. And I was like, I actually thought nothing of it. And it was about 6 months later, a mate of mine who comes from the Swiss-German border, he'd been ill, come back, and he was talking about it. And I was actually at Wollonga in the markets, drumming and stuff, and we were chatting away. And he mentioned The Way, and I just had that light bulb moment. So that day when I finished the markets, I went straight back. I was living in Old Ranella at the time, and I downloaded the movie, and I was watching the movie, and I was just crying. It was just, I just knew I had to go and do. But it was quite funny because the first time when I watched it 6 months earlier, just nothing. But when the time was right, it was just bang. And I just knew I was doing it. So for me, and this is profound for me, because to do this pilgrimage, I gave up my job. I gave up the house I was living with. So I was giving up my security and what I'd known all my life. You got to go to work, earn money to feed yourself and put a place over your head. So trust me, this was huge for me to take that leap of faith, but it just felt right, and it was so strong. So I gave up the house, gave the job, and I sold off what I could to help pay for it. Now, the original Mother Earth drum that I'd started off doing drumming and meditations with, because it was gifted to me, and that's another story which I won't go into tonight because that'll take me about 10 minutes to tell that whole story. But I'd had offers for people to buy this drum, and I said, no, I'll never sell it, just because I was gifted it in so many ways, winning money, etc., etc. So I honoured that by saying, no, I'd never sell it. So, and I'd done this thing out at Riverdale out at Gawler, which is the first time anyone had done an overnight thing out there. And, we did the dawn, I did a drumming meditation, watching the sunrise, all that sort of stuff. And I had been made an offer on the drum, and I said no. And then I'd gone home, and that night, was it the next morning or that night, I was having a shower. And again, this voice, as clear as day in my head, said, it's okay to sell the drum. So I contacted the person the next day and I said, hey, look, if you still want to buy the drum, yep, no worries, we've agreed on the price. And by selling that drum, that paid for my airfares and my insurance for the 10 weeks that I ended up going and booking. That paid for my flights to and from trains and all that sort of stuff. So that paid for that. And that was a huge part for me. But it was just getting that, it's okay to sell the drum guidance in my head, which I've had many moments in my life, on my spiritual path, where I've just had that clear message. And like you were talking about things, how you see things.
Must have got a bit for the drum then.
Yeah. Not as much as I probably could have got for it, but I was happy with what I got. And like I said, it was, I can't remember actually what I got now. But like you were saying before, how you can see energy and stuff. I have seen stuff, and I sometimes pick up things, but there's different ways I call what I call the knowing. I'll just know stuff. It'll just bang in my head, it's there. Or I get that, it's like a voice in my head, and it's so clear, the guidance that I get, that I don't, and I've learned now, I don't doubt it. It was like the story about where they kept telling me, hold her hand, hold her hand. That was so clear, but I was just trying to block it.
So what advice would you give to people that are trying to train their intuition?
Trust. And I know it's hard, trust me, because I was the biggest pessimistic, skeptic, had to see it to believe it person ever. So for me, it was a big thing to learn and trust, but just keep at it, trust. As they say, it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the better you'll get at it. And trust me, Spirit, Creator, God, the universe will help you. It'll give you, like it did for me, it'll give you those moments where just that confirmation to just so you know that what you're getting was right. And in the early days, it'd be through teachers or different things. And now it's just, and now I see it. Okay, right, yeah, mate, that's bang. And then I can see it happening. So, yeah, oh, wow, that's cool. So now it's right. But yeah, the universe will support you, and it really will. It's when that you don't trust and you don't believe. So if you're getting a feeling and you go another way, that's usually when you get the smack around the head, or, the universe gives you those little Mack truck lessons and things. So the biggest advice is just trust. I know in the beginning it's not easy, but go with it. Go with the flow and see where it takes you. And if you make a decision, for Christ's sake, sorry, Jesus, make a decision, as many gurus and people will teach you. If it's the wrong one, make another one. The worst thing you can do is do nothing. Because you're either going forwards or backwards. You can't stand still, and you don't want to be going backwards, because that's when you get the Mack truck lessons and kicks up the backside. So make a decision. If it's wrong, make another one.
So when you were going, when you first started your spiritual journey, if you could go back now and give yourself some words of advice, what would you tell yourself?
Trust. Yeah. And listen. Don't try and block it out. Because I used to try and block it out with alcohol and other things. I mean, it's okay to still have a drink and stuff. We are human. We're having a human experience. But don't do things to excess, because that's when we're going to block. And the more trust we can do, and going back to myself, trust, listen, trust and listen. Listen to that voice in your head. Trust it, act on it. Trust, listen and act. Yeah, make a decision.
So, what are you offering at the moment as far as healings, training, anything like that? So because of the lifestyle I've been living the last few years, I didn't want to set up a business premise or anything like that, because that for me would be too much pressure. Then it would become all about the money, because then I'd have to pay rent and do this and do that. So for me,
I offer a mobile service, whether it be in your home, space, or I'll come into your business. So, I've done it before, gone into business to run a meditation for the people in the business. Might be 6 employees, high stressed environment. Come in for an hour, do some drumming, run a meditation, or can do massage, do some healing work, do some drumming on that person, because everything that I do is about relieving stress, making us happier. So I do sound baths, I do meditations, I do one-on-one healings. I call them shamanic healings, or you can call them sound healings, because they encompass so many different things, and that includes Reiki. But I can do the massage, I can do foot reflexology and hand reflexology if that's what people want, or massage or Reiki. But I can combine them. When I started traveling over to Victoria quite a few years ago, doing workshops and stuff over there, that's when I started actually, again, because I'm always learning and growing. And that's when I started encompassing in, say, I was doing like 90-minute sessions for $150, because in Melbourne, people want to pay more money over there. I don't know why, but they do. They seem to want to pay more than Adelaide. So I was doing longer sessions, and I was actually then breaking up, like doing half massage and then half with the healing. So, you sit there, work on, do a bit of work on the legs, the back, shoulders, just to get people in that relaxed state, make them nice and warm and comfortable. And then I'd do the drumming and the shamanic side for the rest of the healing time. And then what else do I do? I do house cleansings and clearings. So I can come into your house if people feel, especially if people renting, if they move into a new house, you can imagine, say, if there had been people living in that house there was always fights and carry on. So when we have fights and stuff like that, we leave little bits of dark energy and residue around. So houses can feel very dark, heavy. So what I do, come in again through my drums and other stuff, smudging and other things that I do, is to remove any dark entities or lower energy entities that are hanging around. And it could be just simple souls that have not moved on. They're not necessarily bad or anything, but they just haven't moved on, and to help them to move on, to release and move on. And then, lifting the energy of the place, cleansing it, things like that. What else do I offer? Did I write down anything else? I think that's it in a nutshell, what I offer. But I just also wanted to quickly mention how powerful the drumming is. A couple of points was...
Yeah, absolutely.
Years ago when I was white feather drumming, before I was sound of the Kuhn, 2 profound things. I was doing a healing, I was doing an hour workshop with the drums in Goodwood. It's a Lutheran dementia care facility. And so for an hour, I had my big drum. I used to have rattles and other stuff, and people would come up and join me on the drum and things like that.
Yep.
And I remembered this man. He was in late stages of dementia. And the thing that I remembered about it was he hadn't moved. I'd never seen his facial expression. It was just this blank. And I remember him right at the end, they wheeled him up, and I can't remember his name, but I loved the way the nurses and that talked to him. And it was like, oh, Mister, would you like? And they put a beater, which we drum with, the big beaters, in his hand. And it probably moved no more than an inch onto the drum. And when that beater hit this drum, this man smiled. And even now, I'm getting the goosebumps. And there's been times I've relived that story. And for me, it was so profound and emotional. At times, I've even had a tear, but always brings up that where I nearly feel like crying. So again, it was just such a profound moment of seeing. And this is nothing to do with me. This is the power of the drum.
Yeah.
Of how just that man moving the beater an inch, how much that affected him, from lying motionless for an hour to actually having a smile like that.
But
and
they can't hire you with a drum.
Yeah. Usually I come with the drum because I do a bit of drumming. And another one I did back in those days was out at Elizabeth House in Noarlunga, which is an over 80s And funnily enough, none of the men were there. All the men were out the back doing men stuff. So I was inside with the women, and because I had rattles and drums, and this lady, and I've got it, so I can share. I think I have shared it on my Facebook page. So this lady, it goes for about 30 seconds of all these women over 80, and I think there's about 8 of us on the drum, and I'm hey, Jill, my chanting, and then I'd chant, and they're all chanting with me, and the lady, because everyone smiles, everyone just loves it. And a thing, and I was just telling Lorraine this the other day, I was in Wollonga markets, and this happened many times. I used to go set up, especially when I was trying to raise money to do my first pilgrimage. And I'd sit there, because I always start off with the boom, 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 typical Native American sound. And there'd be people at stalls, not even looking at me, because I'm an observer. So I'm always watching and observing energy, trees, life, people. And people, they'd start tapping their feet. They'd start moving. I didn't even know, half the time they wouldn't even realize they were doing it. And like I said, they weren't looking at me. They were. So that's just another cool example of how powerful drumming is. And it doesn't matter what age you are. And that's the beauty of drumming and the circle. There's no bigger or better. No one's better than anyone else. It breaks down all the barriers, socio, age, abilities. Yep. Especially from that last story about the man with dementia, anyone can do it. It just breaks down any barriers and things like that. And can I just go back to the Camino again?
Yeah.
So I did the Camino in 2016, and I had a lot of pain, a lot of experiences. And when I did it, it was like, thank God that was done. And I hadn't planned on doing it again. And then early 2019, it was just, I just had that same, not the same aha moment, but I just had that, man, I got to do this again, because I hadn't finished. Because before I went on the one, I was getting guidance through Saint Germain and other things, and I knew I had to clear a past life experience so in another lifetime I'd been killed doing the Camino, and I didn't get that solved in 2016, but I thought no more of it. And then in 2019, I've got to do this again. So 2019 comes along, same thing, just bang, went and did it. But the beauty of it, I had the experience of the first one, so I did things, even the way I trained for it was so different and better for me, and the experience I'd got from the first one. So anyway, so I'm walking with this guy, and I met all these different lovely pilgrims. And I walked with this Croatian guy for weeks and weeks and weeks. And towards the end of the Camino, it was getting to the later stages. He just started really to grate on me, and I couldn't work out why. And even there was times where I thought, I got to get away from this guy.
Yeah.
And I went a different path and stayed at different places. And then this was a perfect example. I went this way, he went that way. And then the next day we were walking, and I shit you not, walking into this little village. I'm on this road, and who's coming down this road? Bang. And we meet at this bar, and I'm going, what is going on? And then we get to this town called Leon. And Leon, there's a couple of really big cities on the way. Burgos, beautiful cathedral. Leon has another big famous cathedral. And then Santiago de Compostela has the big famous cathedral where, for the Catholics, that's where the pilgrimage ends. So anyway, so in Leon, and I was talking to this lovely couple, lovely Japanese lady and her Canadian partner, and I'd become close to them through different things. And I was talking to them, and it was just the three of us in this quiet little alleyway. And I said to them, and I was explaining about this guy and how I just didn't seem to be able to get away. And we were talking, and then it just hit me. And I was bang. And I just said to him, I said, wow, he's the guy that killed me in the past life. And I just had this massive, when you get that, for me, I get the massive goosebumps. And it's like electricity, especially when something's just spot on. It's like electricity running through my body. And that's my sign that what I've just is spot on. And And then the emotion, I just started crying. And I was releasing all that emotion. And they just come up. They didn't say anything to me. They just both come up, put their arms around me and just held me and let me process. And I know probably a good 5 minutes just crying, just releasing. But such a profound moment. And just one more quick story from 2019 was not Cucabelis. That's further down. Before Burgos, if anyone knows what I'm talking about, I was in this little village. And I got psychically attacked by this dark entity, and it would not go. And I was always taught, we have the power. If you say it must go, and this entity would not leave. And then whoever, whether it was Jesus, whoever, and then out of nowhere, I just said, in the name of Jesus Christ, you must go. And this thing was gone. This entity was gone. And it was about 3 or 4 days later. I do have it written down in my diary. I was walking along and I saw something shiny. I was on a dirt track and I saw something shiny catch my eye. So I'm just trying to get it out. And it was this cross, which was, and it's only small, and it was about 3/4 buried, but there was just enough sticking out of the dirt that reflected on the sun to catch my eye. And so, so I grabbed it, and when I got to Leon, I brought a little, like one of these, whatever you call them, things. They tied it up for me so I could wear it. And that was 2 profound things. And that's when I really realised how powerful Christ consciousness is, Christ light. Not from a religious point of view, and I was brought up Lutheran, so not from a religious point of view, because I'm not religious. But that showed me how powerful Christ consciousness and Jesus Christ is. Yeah. So just wanted to share those 2 experiences.
Awesome. So how can people get hold of you if they want to look you up, they want to get some healing work done, anything like that?
Yeah. So my preferred methods is if you can go onto my Sound of the Kuhn Facebook page or my personal page and PM me. You can email me at soundofthekuhn, Kun, @gmail.com, or you can text me. I prefer, I don't mind if people call me, but I prefer, especially if I don't know you, so I don't have your number, if you text me first, if you want to do it just by phone, and then give me your number and I can actually call you back. I'd sooner do it that way than just have me call me, just because there's so many spam calls and rubbish callers out there. Especially since I went back to a Telstra number.
That's everything.
Yeah. So I've even had calls like come up with just a normal mobile phone. Next thing, there's his voice in Chinese going blah 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 blah, and I'm going, all right. So if you can PM me from my Facebook pages, you can email me. I'm not sure of my phone number if that shows up on here or anywhere.
We won't worry about that.
Or I can give it out, or it doesn't matter.
I've got your Instagram and Facebook page in the show notes. Steffi just put them up, and I can edit the show notes later to put your email in.
Yeah, I'm not big on Instagram, but you can contact me because I'll get a notification that someone's trying to message me. I am working on being more active with social media. It's not my forte, unfortunately, but So that's my preferred way to contact me, and happy to discuss different things. Yeah.
No worries. Well, it's been awesome to have you on the show. It's been great. Good stories, and it was great to hear just about how all your modalities sort of just rolled into one, and just for whatever people need. That's awesome. I know we could go on for a couple more hours, keep talking. That's easy done. Yeah. But thank you again for being on the show, Matthew. And if you want to get hold of him, just all the links in the show notes, and you can message him, get some healing work done. Do you do remote work, or is it all in person? Or
I can do, but because of my lifestyle, I don't have a set space where I've got Wi-Fi to do the one-on-one stuff. So most of my stuff I prefer to do in person, but I can do if it If someone's way out the way, I can do it. I mean, energy flows where I direct it. You know what I mean? So I can do the remote stuff, but I do prefer it one-on-one or groups. But yeah, I go with the flow. I'll go where I'm needed. So yeah.
No worries. Well, thanks very much for coming on the show today. It was awesome. And people just, you can still share this out and pass it on. And if you want to get hold of Matthew, as I said again, just see in the show, just look from the show notes. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks.
See you, Matthew. Have a good night, and I'll see you next time. See you, people.
Yeah, cool.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
You